Before did John the Baptist live in the wilderness? Jean-Baptiste Didlive in the desert? This is evidenced by the text of the Gospel. He is said to have donned camel hairskin and to eat wild honey and grasshoppers. He lived in the desert. We know that when he was conceived his mother was very old. She had passed the age of having the rules, so that we have children, and yet she gave birth to it. We may think that his parents died quickly enough and he found himself alone in the desert. So what does the desert mean? Does that mean that he lived really separated, in the countryside, in a sort of shelter, in a cave, a little like Elijah, fed by a raven? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The desert, perhaps also the fact that it was collected by certain deeply religious communities, like the Essenes who lived in the desert, in monasteries, and of which one found ruins, because they were destroyed during the Great War against the Romans in 70 AD. This is also where we found jars containing the Qumran manuscripts, so a whole literature of that time. Some have said that in the preaching of John the Baptist, who at once is merciless to sinners, who reveals where Pilate's sin is, for example, but also Pharisees who are actually enemies of the Essenes. They do not endure, in a rivalry, I would say, of holiness, and on the other hand, in his mercy speech, much like the Essene texts on the suffering servant, someone whom they were to worship and who had to be persecuted and executed by the high priests. Well, we find in the preaching of John the Baptist, these things. Perhaps. It's not sure. We do not know anything. All we know is that he lived in the desert and an angel educated him. He says it himself. The one who told me to go baptize told me, the one on whom you will see a dove come down, the Holy Spirit, tell him. He is the Messiah who is to come. And John the Baptist, as a prophet of the Old Testament, obeys. He simply obeys, totally, to this word he has received, this supernatural creature. Did she appear to him externally? Did she appear to him in his dreams? We do not know either, it is not specified. But he lived in the desert with his prayer, like the greatest prophet of the Old Testament.